Hello, and welcome to Future Bites, the show where we explore the technologies reshaping the way we live, eat, and connect with the world. I'm your host, Aurora, and today we're diving into a topic that's sizzling, literally and figuratively, lab-cultured meat. You have heard whispers about it, burgers grown without cows, chickens without the farmyard, steaks without the slaughter. But how real is it? How does it work? And most importantly, is it the future of what ends up on your plate? Let's find out. So first we want to know, what is lab-cultured meat? Lab-cultured meat, sometimes called cell-based meat or cultivated meat, is real meat grown from animal cells outside of the animal's body. It's not plant-based like a veggie burger. It's actual meat, just produced in a radically different way. Here's the idea. Scientists take a tiny sample of animal cells, often muscle cells, and place them into a nutrient-rich environment called a bioreactor. Think of this as like a high-tech incubator where these cells are fed proteins, vitamins, and sugars they need to grow and multiply, just like they would inside of an animal. After several weeks, you have enough muscle tissue to make a chicken nugget, a burger, or even a steak. And the goal? Meat without raising, feeding, and slaughtering billions of animals, and with a fraction of the environmental impact. Now let's hear from podcast host Dr. Danielle Lyon on her take on lab-cultivated meat.
Eat lab-grown meat or you want to drink almond juice, fine, okay? Personally, I have that in my coffee, okay? But the reality is, what becomes important is that we at least have to be on the same page with a transparent conversation.
It has to be honest.
It has to be honest.
Yeah.
So if we are having a political discussion about nutrition, then let's do that. But if we are going to have an empirical discussion about the data, then let's just do that. And ultimately let people choose and let them be in control of at least hearing information with an open mind to be able to make better choices for themselves and their families.
So next we want to tackle, why are scientists doing this? What is their motivation? The motivation behind lab-cultured meat is huge, and the issues touch on some of the biggest challenges that face our world today. The first is ethics. Every year, over 70 billion land animals are slaughtered for food worldwide, and that's even more if you factor in fisheries. Cultivated meat offers a way to enjoy meat without the suffering or death of these creatures, which is a big deal to animal rights activists. Second is the environmental impact. Traditional livestock farming uses massive amounts of water, land, and feed, and produces a staggering amount of greenhouse gases. Beef production alone is responsible for approximately 14.5% of all human-made emissions. Lab-cultured meat could dramatically reduce the footprint. Some estimate up to a 90% drop in emissions and land use. And finally, and in my opinion, probably the most important issue, is food security. As the global population pushes toward 10 billion by 2050, we'll need to double food production without doubling farmland. Cultured meat could offer a scalable, sustainable solution to this issue. So the next question you might have is, how close are we to seeing these products in stores? You might be wondering, okay, yeah, this sounds great, but when can I actually buy a lab-grown burger? And that's a good question. The technology is already here. Companies like Upside Foods, Just Eat, and Believer Meats have successfully produced lab-cultured chicken and beef. In fact, Singapore became the first country to approve cultured meat for sale back in 2020, and the United States followed in 2023, allowing limited sales in select restaurants. However, there are still challenges. The first one is cost. Early prototypes cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Today, the price is dropping fast, but it's still much more expensive than traditional meat. The second issue is scaling up. Growing a few cells in a lab is one thing, but mass producing tons of meats economically is a whole different game and not something that we have been able to tackle in an economic way yet. And the last is consumer acceptance. Will people want to eat lab-cultured meat? The surveys are mixed. Some are excited and some are skeptical. I can tell you from personal experience In the area that I live in an incredibly rural area, and this is not something that is widely accepted among consumers in this area. I'm sure in cities that are more densely populated, that it is a little bit more easy for these people to accept, but out here, it is not. Most experts predict that you'll be seeing cultured meat in specialty restaurants and select grocery stores within the next 5 to 10 years, if not sooner. And this kind of goes along with the methods of technological change that we've talked about so far in this semester. The first one that I wanted to go over is Everett Rogers' diffusion of innovation categories. The curve goes from innovators to laggards, and the innovators might be these people that are in these bigger cities, more willing to try different products. They've probably already tried plant-based meat, and they would be more willing to try cultivated meat or lab-produced meat. And on the other end of the curve, you have people that are probably more in the area that I live in, rural people that are traditional farmers. So in this situation, they're probably going to be laggards. They're probably not going to want to try this meat ever, if ever, or until they are sure that it is safe and that it has been accepted by their peers. I have a feeling that it's going to take a long time for the people of Erath County and Stephenville to be widely accepting or ordering lab cultured meat in a restaurant. The other method of tech change that I wanted to briefly go over would be Lewin's change model. And it has 3 stages: unfreeze, change, and refreeze. And here in the unfreeze stage in this situation, we see that we have developed some sense of urgency in this issue, meaning we have a problem. We know that food scarcity is an issue that the world will be facing in the next 20 to 30 years. And so we need to develop some sort of plan to tackle that issue. And that's kind of what we're seeing now. We're trying to develop this technology. And that brings us to the next part, which would be the change. And that's refining this technology. That's making it more visible and more accessible to more people, training restaurants and food staff, and training scientists in a way that we can mass produce this kind of meat. That's going to be the next step in Lewin's change model, which is the change. We're starting to see that happen now with this issue. And then the final stage of Lewin's change model is the refreeze stage, which I don't think will happen, maybe not in my lifetime, if not ever, because that would mean that in this issue, people would be permanently eating lab-grown meat, and that's not something I think I'm going to live to see. So I think because this model is completely linear, I think the last stage is a little bit ongoing, in my opinion. It might be a little bit more different in larger cities, like I said earlier. But again, out here in rural Texas, I don't think we're going to see a lot of refreezing and completely adopting lab-cultured meat. And that brings me to the next issue, which a lot of the laggards around this issue are having with this is it safe? Is this something that's safe to consume? And safety is a top priority. Cultured meat production is closely monitored for contamination, just like pharmaceutical manufacturing. And in many ways, lab-grown meat could actually be safer than conventional meat. There's no risk of E. coli outbreaks from slaughterhouses and no antibiotics needed to keep animals healthy. Both the FDA and the USDA in the United States have already reviewed and cleared the first cultured meats for consumption, declaring them safe to eat. Still, regulators will keep a close eye on this as the industry grows. So now that we know more about lab-cultured meat and the process that goes into it and how we think people will receive it, let's go over some of the pros and cons. The pros: it's more ethical, there's no slaughter of animals involved. It has a lower environmental impact. It is potentially safer, meaning less antibiotic use and lower contamination risks. And it's customizable, meaning future meats could have healthier fat profiles and added nutrients. And now let's weigh the cons. The first is high production costs. Energy use. Most production methods of lab-cultured meats still require a lot of electricity and energy. Consumer skepticism. Lab meat does not sound appetizing to everybody. And the last would be regulation hurdles. Different countries have different standards for food approval. So finally, will lab cultured meat replace traditional meat entirely? Probably not, or at least not anytime soon. Farming, ranching, and traditional agriculture are deeply woven into the cultures and economies worldwide. But as technology improves, it could offer a powerful alternative, giving people more choices, reducing environmental stress, and who knows, maybe even changing the way we think about food forever. Would you try lab cultured meat? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Send me a message or comment below.